They say a true leader is one whom people follow voluntarily. And if there's any legacy that Sam Altman has left behind at OpenAI, apart from ChatGPT, it is of hundreds of his team members supporting him through this big twist in his life. Almost 743 OpenAI employees out of the total 770 have signed an open letter threatening to leave unless the board resigns and reinstates Sam Altman as the CEO, along with co-founder and former president Greg Brockman. Now, this is just one of the many ripple effects that the Silicon Valley is witnessing and is expected to see after the controversial exit of Sam Altman, the man credited with not just the game-changing ChatGPT bot, but also revolutionizing the tech landscape. On the 17th of November, Samuel Altman, or Sam Altman as he's popularly known, was fired as OpenAI CEO. And what followed was a rather extraordinary weekend at the Silicon Valley. Nobody knew about this decision by the board, neither the employees nor the investors. Now, the board claims, and I quote, Sam was consistently candid in his communications with the board, hindering its ability to exercise its responsibilities. The board also claimed a loss of confidence in Sam. Now, OpenAI roped in ex-Twitch CEO Emmett Shear as the interim boss. Meanwhile, Microsoft was quick to reach out to Sam and call it poaching or just a job offer, but now Sam Altman is part of Microsoft. This shocking departure, many say, has similarities with how the late Steve Jobs was ousted by Apple in 1985. Jack Dorsey was fired from Twitter, Travis Kalanick from Uber, Sachin and Binny Bansal from Flipkart, and the list goes on. Now, it's been called a boardroom coup, the biggest twist of Silicon Valley so far. But what's really happening among the world's biggest tech giants, and what are the implications on the world of artificial intelligence? We ask these questions tonight. Joining me on the show are Manish Maheshwari, co-founder, Fannery.ai. He's also the former sales head of Twitter India. Lloyd Mathias, tech executive, joins us, and Sanjay Ghare, CEO, Vervatech, joins us on the show. Good evening, namaskar. Welcome to all of you gentlemen. Thank you very much for speaking with Mirror Now. First to you, Lloyd Mathias. We've seen this drama really unfolding at the Silicon Valley over the weekend. And it, of course, has come as a shocker to the entire tech world. But the reasons that the board has cited, what do you make of them?
Thank you, Shreya. I think what's unfolded over the weekend smacks of two things. I think one is the challenges for a board managing a maverick founder. You cited instances of Steve Jobs in the past and various other instances. I think one reality of especially technology-enabled maverick founders, a lot of them tend to run the company, by a whim. This is not taking away any of the credit in terms of what OpenAI and Sam Altman have built and the kind of revolution they've created in the whole generative AI space over the last 1 year. But I think clearly there were challenges, as it seemed, as the board perceived. Having said which, I think the board clearly overreached itself by almost unilaterally making a decision on a weekend, by firing the CEO without even taking into confidence all the investors and specifically a lot of the senior leadership. So in that sense, I think, in a sense, it smacks of board overreach. And I think what it's done is really kind of created a lot of instability and, in a sense, enabled Microsoft to swoop in and get a deep play into the AI space, where they were frankly, they had some play, and obviously they had a significant investment in this company per se. But I think now what they've done is kind of, in a manner of speaking, engineered a coup by virtually getting the entire team. So I think two essential step-ups. I think one, the board really not taking into account the leadership, the employee, the employee's point of view, and specifically investors. And two is the fact that somewhere long, I think the communication seems to have broken down between the founder, CEO, and the board. And I think that really smacks of very bad governance in general.
Okay. Manish Maheshwari, how big is this impact, on the world of artificial intelligence? How should we really see this? Is it going to have very many major ripple effects in the tech world?
Look at it as in the Bay Area, the tension between the so-called AI boomers and the doomers, like the optimist and the pessimist, has been brewing for some time. And I think what this episode does is that it brings them into sharper focus. Now, what has also happened with this is that, with Sam Altman joining Microsoft now, there is a one clear winner in this AI commercialization game, and that is Microsoft. So that would mean that people would have much more confidence and clarity in terms of who to partner with and who to sort of look up to for standards in AI. So that actually is a good outcome for the entire ecosystem in general. Plus, also there is a general awareness, and I think this episode also brings it to creates more awareness about the importance of AI. So we'll see a lot more investment. At the same time, regulators will also start taking notice because they'll also realize that this is something very important, and I think they can't just keep quiet about it. So my view is that this entire episode in sort of a inflection point in the progression of AI, where there'll be more attention to it, more investment on AI. The leadership will become very clear in terms of which company or who are the set of people who are leading this progress. And also regulation will start taking notice, and I think industry will in general mature after this event. So something like that was needed, but I think this was a bit too dramatic to happen over just a weekend.
So perhaps the trust in OpenAI that was there earlier will be reduced. That's what you're saying when it comes to AI and new tech that OpenAI could have come up with.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, OpenAI was clearly a leader, and I think people are looking up to it. But I think with this kind of a change, and I think if Sam doesn't go back to OpenAI, they would clearly lose their lead. And I think in my mind, the winner here is Microsoft, certainly is the winner, both in terms of betting on OpenAI earlier, and I think now with getting the founder as well as the majority of the researchers from there, they would sort of emerge as the winner in this. And in a way, I mean, they have acqui-hired the entire OpenAI team at zero cost. And if you look at the way market responded earlier yesterday, when the US markets opened, the market cap of Microsoft increased by the amount of the valuation of OpenAI. So clearly the market is seeing this as an acqui-hire of the team at OpenAI at almost no cost to the company.
Okay, Sanjay Khare, one of the reasons that has been cited is how Sam wanted to move further ahead with generative AI. And, perhaps disagreements over a fundamental question, which resides at the heart of artificial intelligence, is how to keep technology safe. And that perhaps was also one of the conflict points, do you see, between Sam and the board?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for having me, Shreya. And, I think there are two ways to look at this, right? So first of all, what happened in the boardroom really remained in the boardroom, and eventually the story would come out. But there can be two possibilities of looking at this, right? One is if you look at conventionally, any great CEOs, even like Steve Jobs as a very well-known example, who are very thought leaders, extremely opinionated. They're very open and honest about their thought process. As an example, Sam had been saying it all the time that AI will consume jobs. And a lot of times board and these founder CEO doesn't really agree to it. The fact these big companies are built are actually because they're opinionated, they're confident, then they're clear about their thought process. Let it be Steve Jobs' example or let it be Sam's example. But eventually, once the company becomes big, that conflict becomes, bigger and bigger. And which is very common. We have seen, we do have local examples like Ashneer Grover or the global examples like Steve Jobs. So it has happened over the period of time, over and again. But this particular case, Shreya, is actually unique. The reason OpenAI board was able to fire Sam because OpenAI is completely controlled by its parent company, which is non-profit. So three of the board members, three of them
Hmm.
co-founder and three of the other board members are actually come from that non-profit company. So and of course, and all of the conversation in the next 30 minutes, you will realize this doesn't make any sense. But what happened in the boardroom? There may be the other angle. OpenAI founders, kind of created the board, which remains non-profit. Any of the investors like Microsoft, who owns the 49% of the company, doesn't have any seat on board and any influence on such decision. Was very intentionally because they wanted to
Hmm.
create AI for everyone. Uh, you know, there is other angle that did the thought process of Sam has changed eventually and board remained on the same thought process of making sure it is independent and not very aligned with a particular giant. These can be the two angles to look at it, because why this happened. Of course, this was not a
Hmm.
prepared event, but the way I look at it is, and eventually this will come out. It can be either way. Of course, the decision is wrong, but why it happened might have two sides to it, and we'll have to just watch and see which side makes sense.
Okay. Lloyd Mathias, I want to talk about the larger discussion that has that is following this event, this incident of this, the firing of Sam Altman, and that is that how is it that founder after founder is fired from his own company? Like Sanjay said, that the conflict seems to get bigger between the founder, the mind behind the product, and the board members. What happens? What transpires through these years where everything's going well, and suddenly one day the board decides to fire the very man that has got you where you are?
Shreya, that's quite literally the million-dollar question. But broadly, I would say there are three key reasons behind this. One is that Maverick founders, and we've all gone through the list, in the show a couple of times, I think tend to be extremely creative, strong-willed, innovative personalities. But while these are great in terms of the early stage of setting up the company, building innovative products, creating path-breaking technologies and such like, I think they're typically traits that don't go very well with managing the larger environment. At some level, we're seeing this with a little bit of the way Elon Musk runs a bit his companies. But sticking to the subject, I think that's one. So one, I think it's a big personality issue that comes in. The second is, I think, the way these companies are structured. As the company grows, they clearly build a board. And obviously, a lot of the boards, as Sanjay rightly spelled out in this context, has been built with a little bit of a non-profit skew. Given the fact that generative AI walks the fine line of technology and ethics, I think they rightly chose, in a sense, a non-profit orientation. So here are people looking at the larger issue beyond technology of the wide-ranging impact that AI will have on humans at large, right? From decision-making to taking ethical calls. I think that's the second part. The third, I think, is the growth trajectories of this company. If you look at it, literally 18 months ago, very few people even heard of the company, or ChatGPT was a non-entity. And I think, in the last 1 year, it set the world on fire. So this alarming growth is what actually changes the entire focus and profile. Suddenly, your company, which was, let's say, a nascent startup working out of a garage, is now becoming a global force. And suddenly, therefore, global investors are taking a look. Large corporations like Microsoft are buying a share of the pie. And that's, in a sense, changing the equation. And simultaneously, regulators are looking at it with all this. So I think a combination of the personality of Maverick founders, the alarming growth that these things see, and thirdly, the constitution of the governance structure, be it the board, be it the fact that regulatory around AI is still evolving, right? We all don't know which direction AI will take in the next few years. I think this is a potent combination. And therefore, there is always bound to be certain clashes. So the sooner a bit of a, shall we say, a bit of a slowdown happens in terms of getting more mature individuals to guide it, at the same time leaving the space for the founder to still go ahead and execute path-breaking strategies. I think that middle ground is always a big challenge and difficult to find.
Okay, Manish, the fact that several of the OpenAI employees, some reports suggest 500, some say 700 out of all the employees that are currently working there, have written a letter saying that, the board should resign and that they should reinstate Sam as the CEO. With the kind of pressure that the company is facing, do you think there is any potential, any chance that the company might get Sam back?
So you're right. I mean, the pressure is immense. I mean, I have never seen something of this kind where almost all the employees threaten to resign unless a decision like this is reversed. So while the pressure is immense, my view also is that, a lot of damage has been done, right? I mean, so the question would be, on what ground would you then have the board resign, have Sam come back in? What happens to all the equation? I am not ruling out the possibility that may happen, but it seems like that a lot of damage has been done, so it would be very difficult for that to undo all of that stuff, right? I also wanted to answer your other question about how can a founder be fired from their own company. So I think a big part of that is how the board is structured and who has the majority on the board to make a decision. And in this situation, the non-profit parent company had the majority on the board, and therefore they were well within their right to fire the CEO or the founder. So that's very unusual for them to do that in a way they did it. I mean, that part is very unusual without even informing any of the investors. And in fact, the two major investors, Microsoft and Khosla Ventures, both were blindsided. And I think both of them came out saying that, they are not quite happy with the way this was done. So I think that's the answer to your other question as well.
And the fact that they haven't given very substantial, concrete reasons behind this. Either they're saying they've lost confidence, he's been candid, he's not communicating properly. Some reports suggest that they've said that, he was giving different opinions about one particular member to different board members. Nothing concrete that would suggest that, okay, this is a great reason or this is a valid reason to actually fire somebody who has been building your brand. But Sanjay Khare, what do you really make of it? This whole thing of founder after founder being fired. We've had it with Steve Jobs. We've had it here in India also. Does a man change? Does the company change? Because the employees' trust, the members, the team trust is still with their leader.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I said earlier, there's, exceptional founders who create the exceptional companies are very opinionated and very honest and brutal about their thought process, which always create some friction between the founder and the board members. But in this case, this particular case, if you give an attention to details, Shreya, the one fact, which I found slightly weird is Sam, Greg, and Ilya, who has created or, built their foundation on a non-profit thought process, constitute a board that way. If in the entire thing, of course, Sam wanted to come back because he has an option of going to Microsoft, but this is his own baby, right? He wanted to come back. But what he said is, he didn't say that, just, fire the board and create the new board. What he said is, let's have a new board with an agreement or, with a consensus from the investors. And in my opinion, that has been a fundamental change in what Sam and Greg and Ilya had been talking about as a different company, preserving their independence, the way they, constituted their board. And what he said now as a request for forming a new board is a shift in their thought process, in my opinion. And the other thing which supports this, Shreya, is if you think, though Satya and Nadella, they have invested heavily in OpenAI and they don't have a seat on board, but they are definitely working very closely, have a great relationship with Sam. They have really, came in and, kind of offered them. By this entire process, Microsoft also created an obligation for Sam now that he, in a rare occasion, if he go back to OpenAI, there is an obligation, added obligation towards Microsoft. Or if we go to Microsoft, Then
Do you
so
see,
in
Sanjay,
this entire
Microsoft
thing.
taking over OpenAI?
So I will not say it's exactly that, but what I would say is definitely there is a change, and of course it's a very shocking decision of letting him go over the weekend. But we'll also have to understand one of the three co-founder also supported board earlier in the decision making, and then thoughts changed, right? So this is just a
And
one
then
line
came
of
out. Yeah.
thoughts, which may not be the case. That there is a change, the way Sam has been thinking and the way Sam has been telling about open the world about independence and what he's saying now. And all the actions by Microsoft created additional obligation towards him, which I see as a worry from an
Okay.
independent AI standpoint. It just become a good player in the AI is perfectly fine. But what they had been saying versus where we, are today are slightly different, in my opinion, Shreya.
Okay. Okay, Lloyd, how do you see this moving forward now, really? What do you predict? Is Sam going to go back to OpenAI? Is he going to stay with Microsoft? How is Silicon Valley now going to move forward with these twists and turns that now are almost, common among the tech giants?
I think we're in the midst of a state of flux on the issue. But the way I see it, as Manish stated, I think this is a great opportunity for Microsoft. If you look at the big five tech players, the five as they call, I think for this represents a great opportunity for Microsoft. I think the second part, it also plays perfectly well to Microsoft's strategy, which has, in a manner of speaking, used its deep enterprise sales force. The enterprise sales force built over a couple of decades of dominance on the Office suite of software and the Windows operating system that have over time learned to acquire and use the sales force to push a wide suite of products, starting with their very own cloud service Azure. But if you look at LinkedIn, you look at Skype, you look at GitHub, you look at Mojang Studios, I think this represents one more in their suite of services. This will really help them gallop their market capitalization. So I think the way it pans out is Microsoft has got a definitive edge, whichever way this pans out. Like was inferred, they also have Satya has a great relationship with Sam. So whichever way he goes, I think that works positively. However, I think there's a bit of a flux. We clearly saw one director play both sides. He was the person, Ilya, who first was kind of mouthing the board's opinion. And now in a tweet this morning, he kind of almost walked away from it, almost distancing himself from the board. So I think there's a little bit of dynamics at the board level that's at play. But I think the net winner for now is Microsoft. And the fact remains is that this does not in any way slow down the pace of the growth of the entire concept of generative AI.
Okay. Okay. Quickly, last word, Manish. Now, of course, OpenAI has appointed Emmett Shear as the interim boss. What are the kind of challenges that he is taking up, at least temporarily, and how do you see him really leading OpenAI?
So Shreya, I think he's in a tough spot, right? I mean, he's coming in at a point where everything is in a state of flux. The employees are also threatening to leave. So I think he will have to stabilize the operation, win the confidence. He will have to lay down a vision for the company and also somehow inspire people to stay along if Sam chooses not to come back, right? In my view, that's going to be a tall order for him. And also he's an outsider in the AI world. He doesn't have a background in AI. He has background in a company called Twitch, which is more about a video streaming company. So I think it's going to be tough for him. And particularly at a time like this, where a lot of harm has been done, not just to the workforce morale, but also the brand name and also on the potential of the company to deliver on the promise. It was the forerunner and the leader in terms of conversational AI chatbot, and I think it was doing quite a few other things as well. And also the other fact is that even Ilya, the third founder, seems to have changed his mind. So as Lloyd mentioned, I think the third founder was the one who voted on the resolution to fire Sam. And I think after that, he had a change of heart and he also apologized publicly and he regretted his decision to vote on that. So it seems to me that all the key people are actually not in favor of, going ahead without Sam. So I think that's going to be a tough situation for the new CEO.
Okay. Okay, we'll have to see how it really pans out, not just for OpenAI, but the entire world of artificial intelligence. Lloyd Mathias, Manish Maheshwari, and Sanjay Gare, thank you, gentlemen, for speaking with Mirror now tonight and sharing your perspective on this big twist that came in Silicon Valley. And of course, it has sent shockwaves. We'll have to see how it really pans out in the near future. Thank you very much. All right, with that, it's a wrap on Beyond the Headline. News and updates will continue on the other side. Thank you very much for joining us right now. Bye-bye and good night.